This is RTP. This is RTP180.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining. We would like to just give you a different perspective on, while it's not completely medical device, I want to give a perspective on how data analytics could be used in the context of medical device. Myself, I run the strategy at RxDataScience. So in a startup, we all wear different hats at different hours of the day. So tomorrow, if you ask me, my role could be different, but that's what I do. In terms of, we have heard a lot about data analytics, in terms of social media, lots of different cases. What I would like to do today is, like, the main objective or key takeaway is, in the next 5 minutes, try to walk you through some real-life examples in a different angle, not so much in wearables, consumables. Mostly we have heard a lot in those in social media. Try to bring a little bit more on the operation side of data analytics, how it could be used in the medical device. Yeah. So obviously, we have seen there's a lot of growth of data. We have seen all of them. Of course, there's a lot of industrialization of algorithms, and then the technology power. The three of them is really helping to have a profound impact in terms of how data analytics has been used. So I'll give an example. We are working with a very large, big biopharma company. It's very fascinating. There's a concept called virtual clinical trials, where we are simulating a million people population on mathematical models, simulating human pathways on systems, and try to see, when we run clinical trials, what would be the impact on the human population, which kind of population perhaps is better suited for what is the impact, and so forth. And believe me, in terms of the computational power, we all know AWS, Amazon, some of the cloud computing. The intensity is so high, even those high-performing computational powers are being limited in terms of what we run. So just to give you an idea in terms of how the combination of data, algorithms, and the computational power is really driving some new possibilities in terms of the industry. And obviously, what I'm going to do over the next 5 minutes is try to bring some reality into this, because obviously there's a lot of cases, there's a lot of skepticism. This works, this doesn't work, this is still, is not adapted in the industry, and so forth. Yeah. So based off a lot of analysis we have done, based off a lot of analyst reports and so forth, they're really like what we are seeing is three areas where data analytics in particular is having a profound impact both on the med device and the life sciences industry. So one is mostly on the discovery side, which we have heard a lot, but supply chain operations is almost an untapped area. There's a lot of talent there, but the area is very complex, and that's an untapped area where there's a lot of what we call like gold hidden. There's a lot of tangible value in terms of how analytics can bring in value, but we don't see a lot of work. If you go and scan through a lot of documents and media, you hear a lot in the discovery, you hear a lot in the commercialization, the consumer aspects, but we don't hear a lot in the supply chain operations. So one of my goals is present a couple of use cases where there are some real tangible values where analytics is being applied in the context of med device from a supply chain operations. And I'll also walk through one example in terms of the adverse event monitoring, which is also a very critical aspect from a operations perspective. Yeah. I think I'm sure you all have heard Industry 4.0. The sensors and then the IoTs, those aspects are also providing a new avenue in terms of how we can collect the data, either from shop floors, from logistics, from the patients, how we can integrate back into the kind of the bigger aspects of the data, if you will, to gain insights. Yeah. So the first example, this is one of the holy grails. People have worked in the biopharma industry, have spent a number of years. Quality in general is one of the most critical aspects. It's almost like a showstopper before the product can go to patients or distributors or so forth. But typically what we have seen is this is one of the functions which is still behind the curve compared to like either a sales and marketing, commercial, supply chain, and so forth, right? So here is an example where we have worked with a couple of companies, both in the context of med device. One of them produces 40 terabytes of data on a daily basis. It's all visual data, mostly from printed circuit boards. The other company has got like 60 data points from the time, it takes about 9 months to make the product, from the time they make the product until it goes into the customer. So the challenge is when the failures happen in the field, it is very complex to either kind of fulfill those supply back, or it has an impact on the revenues, the working capital, and so forth. So what could we be doing? So this is an example where collecting data both from the shop floor as well as the supply chain, if you will, and then applying the same principles. Many of your colleagues, you know about patient journey, where you start analyzing the patient history both in the past and the future. The same concepts have been applied from a product perspective to see, like, over the next several months or over the last several months, what happened, what events happened. Can I look into various dimensions? And then most importantly, can I predict some patterns where the quality issues are happening? That way you can start looking into not just preventing, but then also start predicting, because this has got lot of impact both from a revenue perspective, but also from a patient perspective in case of any failures. So this is a very tangible example where AI / data science, ML, whatever terminologies we use, has profound impact, real justifiable ROI. That's one of the challenges we see. Can I have a justifiable use case where machine learning, for example, has a real impact where we can measure the value back, measure the impact back? Okay, this is the first example. The second example is on the supply chain. For many of you who work in the medical device industry, managing field service inventory is a very complex aspect, because how do you keep track of the inventory? Because once it leaves the distribution center, once it goes to the hospital providers, how do you keep track of the inventory? Very challenging problem. But also from a supply chain perspective, here is an example where one of the medical device companies, they always ran into issues where there's always an impact on the working capital. So we looked into 3 categories of products, what provides high revenue, what provides low revenue, and the high variability. So in a very simple 8 weeks POC, we were able to identify almost $20 million worth real inventory saving without impacting their business. Fundamentally, what the scenario was, things which were highly variable, low profitable, they had more products, and things which were high profitable and low variability, they had less inventory. So this is one more example where data science analytics, particularly in the med device concept, is having an impact. And the last one is, this is a fascinating concept called as edge computing, where you're able to now apply these principles for remote patient tracking, remote clinical trials. What happens after a post-surgery if they have any devices in human patients? How could we collect the data and then start predicting, is there any impact on the patient, what we call as the adverse event, which is a critical aspect both during and the post. So one more example where we were able to simulate almost 25 to 30 million patient population, which is roughly a large percentage of what the US patient population is in the hospitals, and start predicting some basic aspects of, depending on the kind of nature of treatment, gather the data and see is there an adverse event, something related to either based on the treatment or something related to something that can have an impact on the future aspects of the patients. Okay, so again, this session was not to make you experts, but at least try to give you some real life examples where analytics and ML in the context of med device with a little bit twist on the operations, if you will.